So this is the first video of a new series where we will be going verse by verse through the book of Titus. This book is an epistle or letter written by Paul to Titus, who was organizing the churches on the island of Crete, written between the years of 62 and 66, with the purpose of instructing the believers on Crete how to live daily life in accordance with their Christian faith. We'll start with verse 1, where Paul identifies himself as the author, establishes a basis for his authority, and then tells us why he's writing this particular letter in the first place. Now, we're going to be using the inductive approach in our study, so we want to remember this three-step process: observe the text, interpret the text, and apply the text. So let's start with some observations regarding verse 1. Paul identifies himself right away as the author. And now remember, because we're observing the text, we're looking for any words, phrases, or expressions that might seem peculiar or jump out at us. And we have one right away with Paul identifying himself as a bondservant of God. In the original Greek, the word here is doulos, meaning servant or slave. Now, this might seem like an odd way for Paul to introduce himself to his readers, but what this shows us is his humble attitude and duty-bound disposition toward God. This is someone who sees himself as completely sold out to his master and dedicated to serving him. Next, we have a very important word that Paul also uses to identify himself, and that word is apostle. The Greek word here is apostolos, a word that occurs throughout the New Testament to refer to a special group of believers commissioned by Jesus exclusively as his envoys to the world. There are other apostles in the scriptures. Paul will sometimes refer to them. You can meet them in the Gospels and the book of Acts. The apostles are unique among believers, and this designation of apostle carries with it a special kind of authority. When Paul uses this word, he doesn't do so lightly, because it carries the weight of authority, validating his teaching so that the reader understands that they can take his words with all the seriousness in the world. Well, Paul says that he is an apostle of Jesus for the faith of those chosen of God. The word rendered faith here comes from pistis in the original Greek. It's used quite a bit throughout the New Testament to refer to a Christian's belief as opposed to works. Remember, Paul is writing in a historical time and place, and the Judaizers, who believe that righteousness is attained through their own works and individual merits, are teaching in opposition to Paul's message. So when Paul says that he is writing for the faith of the chosen of God, he is showing us that faith is a matter of God's choosing and not man's determining. It is an issue of belief and not works. In other words, we cannot work our way into God's good graces. And that belief is linked to what Paul calls the knowledge of the truth. Knowledge here, or epignosis in the original Greek, can be understood as true knowledge, as opposed to the false knowledge preached by the Judaizers. And this true knowledge that Paul speaks of is manifested as truth which is according to godliness. In the Greek, the word godliness here connects to the Old Testament idea of fear of the Lord or respect for God. Again, this is highlighting that faith is a matter of belief and inward disposition as opposed to work and outward action. So with verse 1, we see immediately that Paul is the author of the letter, and his authority as an apostle is the truthful revelation of God, which is to be believed as opposed to attained through works by the elect, as opposed to those of man's choosing. We'll look more at what Paul has to say about this truthful revelation in our next video.